Good morning. Good morning. Hey, what's going on, cousin Carol? What's happening? Troy, how you doing, brother? How's business, man? Girl, mom for life. I know I can always depend on you. Just like you, cousin Carol. You know, it's my lifeline. Hey, y'all, what's going on? What's happening? What's popping? Welcome to another live episode of Daddy's Right Here Live. Yeah, that's why it's called live, man. Open mic all the time. Hot mic all the time. I ain't scared of y'all. I say what I say. I do what I do. I'm consistent. Consistency is definitely the key to everything. Yeah, yeah. Y'all been listening to Spot. Yeah, that's from my Poetic Peace series. If you haven't heard Poetic Peace Volume 1, make sure you go check it out on any of your favorite platforms. Yeah, any of them. Yeah, I don't care what you listen to. Deezer, Spotify, all of them. You find all of my music on those streaming platforms. Yeah, what's happening, man? Missed y'all last week. Was up in Philly. Yeah, was up in Philly, man, to see my granddaughters graduate. Didn't get a chance to see one of them graduate. Our graduation came a little earlier than our arrival, but certainly love her. Certainly appreciate the efforts, man. You know, going to school is not easy, but we have to do it. It's just like work. Work, it's not easy. You know, you have to go to work. You got to take care of bills. Bills will always be coming in. They never stop coming in, and you got to take care of them. Well, you don't have to, but if you want to survive, you want to, you know, exist within this society, you know, you have to pay bills. You can't live anywhere for free. You can't live anywhere for free. Everything comes at a cost. Everything that you do in life comes at a cost. There's consequences, there's sacrifices, there's commitments, there's all these things that happen. And you got to make sure, yeah, you got to make sure that you're on board with all this stuff, man, because what ultimately happens is when you don't participate in things, and things are going on without you, the world passes you by. Yeah, it passes you by, man, and you lie and wait for something to happen for you. It doesn't go that way. You got to put in the work. And that's with all relationships, you know, because life is about relationships. That's all you experience every day in life is some type of a relationship. And all these relationships have different effects on you. Yeah, all these relationships, you know, the workplace affects you. You know, you have to get up every morning. You have to show up. You know, you have to show up. You have to turn up. Make sure things happen because upward mobility in the workplace won't happen if you don't put in the work. If you don't show your commitment. And you know, sometimes what happens is people confuse work with personal identity. And I always tell people, see, I'm a brand. Sabir Aleem is a brand. I'm not just some dude who just wanders aimlessly in the world. I am a brand. Everything I do to represent me. And even if I work for a company, I have to make sure that my values, my beliefs are in alignment with the mission of that company. Because if they're not in alignment, then it's a problem. It's a problem because it causes difficulty within me if I represent one thing and the company represents something else. And we have to understand that. We also have to understand that we do represent the company in our conduct. That we can't just turn around and act any kind of way we want to act and don't think that there's some accountability that's going to take place. Bad behavior, something that we often see in social media, and people don't consider the fact that they're employed. They don't consider the fact that they're employers. See what they do on social media. One way or another, it's going to be seen. It's going to be heard by somebody else. Somebody's going to share what it is that you said, didn't do, right? All of those things are exposed to the public, right? And those things come under fire in many different aspects. In many different aspects. In your personal relationship, uh, you come under fire. And it's not always with bad intentions. It's not always something negative that a person has toward you. Within themselves, they believe it has to do with you because that's the easy route. The easy route is to blame somebody else for your bad behavior. But you have a choice. You have a choice to be in that relationship or not be in that relationship. And if you're in the relationship, then you have to understand that there are rules, there are conditions. There are conditions. When you have relationships in business, you have to understand that conducting business puts you under even more of a heavy scrutinization, because people want things, but then they don't always want to pay the price. They want to question why your price is this way and why your price is that way and how come, prices over here are cheaper. But you have to look at the quality. And oftentimes people don't look at the quality of the product. They look at you and say, well, you should. My brother, my ace boon coon, my friend, that you should yield to these aspects, these identities that they've placed upon you. You should yield to those things that they've put upon you. But you don't have to. It's not a requirement in business. We talk about, being in business with people, and the expectation is that these people favor us as a people. Whether you're black, whether you're white, Asian, whatever, it's the expectation that we have because I look like you that I should only do business with you. That my product should only reflect me and not others. That's not business. That's foolishness. That's foolishness. We do look at everything that you have on right now. Look at all the clothing you wear. Look at the earrings that you have in your ears. Look at the eyeglasses that you're wearing on your face. Look at the barbershop that you go to. Right? Look at all of these things and you ask yourself, what is their success based on? Their success is based on product, not them liking you. The basis of all what they do is always the bottom line, the dollar. I don't need you to like me. I need you to give me a good product that I'm looking for. I don't care if you despise me as a black, as a white, as an Asian, as a Muslim, as a Christian, as a Jew. I don't care about none of those things. And if you're putting effort into those kind of thoughts, you will not be successful at all in business. At all. And the same mindset applies to the relationship, right? It's a matter of mutual respect. You can have a swastika on your forehead. We're still going to do business. right? Because that's what it comes down to. So don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe and thinking that only this group deals with this group and so on and so forth. That's not true. That's not true at all. You're really not paying attention to what's going on. You have fell for some mindset, some thinking, some guidance that is non-existent because everything comes down to money. Hate groups do business with those they hate. Why? Because they want the money. Care nothing about you. I don't have to care anything about you. It always comes down to the bottom line. The bottom line, right? So we're in when we're in relationships with other people, and I'm talking about intimate relationships. I'm talking about spousal relationships. I'm talking about girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever that relationship is, right? There's a mutual respect that must exist, and if it doesn't exist, the relationship will fail to prosper. The relationship will fail to exist at some point in time. At some point in time. And there's going to be things that happen in these relationships that are going to stir something up within you. Yeah. What do they stir up within you? They're called triggers, right? They're called triggers. And we know when we hear the term trigger, in most cases, people refer to a firearm because they have triggers. Once your finger goes on that trigger, you make a decision to pull it, shots fired. The difference with a human being and triggers is that you are the one who has your finger on the trigger. You have your finger on the trigger all the time. All the time. And when things happen before you, right, the way you internalize, the way you perceive that situation, right, determines whether or not you're going to pull that trigger or not. That's why people often say that somebody else did something which affected them. It's your trigger. It's not theirs. It's not theirs. So, what is a trigger when it comes to human behavior? Well, it all comes back to the mind. The mind, not the brain, the mind. The mind is what encapsulates everything about your life from the womb, right, to current day, to the present. All of your conditioning, all of the good things, the bad things that have transpired in your life reside within the mind. There are some things that happen that we refer to as trauma. Now, trauma can be anything. You're used to taking a nice hot bath, and then somebody tells you you have to take a cold bath, right? Or you get a bath drawn for you, and you get into it, and it's not to your liking because it's not as hot as you want it to be. It's not as lukewarm as you like it to be, and it triggers something within you, and you react to it. You react to it. Yeah, I'm all the way down the rabbit hole right now. I'm going to come up to the top so you can better understand what it is that I'm talking about. But that's how complex the human being is. And we're so complex that we lose sight of the complexities, the multifacetedness of the human being. We lose sight of that because we don't understand our humanity. Because our mind has conditioned us to act in certain ways, unbeknownst to us. There's things that we do consciously, and there are things that we do unconsciously. The things that we do consciously are driven by a commitment to acting in this way all the time. And when we act this way all the time, right, it is part of our conditioning. We fail to deviate from it. And when we have to deviate from it, then that's where the confrontations and conflicts happen. in us and outside of us. Follow me here. Somebody yells at you. How do you react to it? Why do you react the way you do? Start with a small thing. I'm not a child. Why are you yelling at me? Why do we use that analogy? If I yell at my child, why do I yell at my child? Because they're not listening? It's not always the case. Sometimes it's out of pure frustration because you have said it over and over and over and over again. Why do I yell? Because maybe I don't know any other means of communication, because somewhere along the line, my conditioning was that somebody always yelled at me. Therefore, I have found it to be the preferable way of dealing with my own conflicts that happened in my life as a child and as an adult. I yell at my siblings as a child. Why? Because that's how I've been conditioned, because I'm yelled at. But when you start getting into adult behavior, right, you have to ask yourself, why have you not reconditioned yourself to be in alignment with what you know to be right and what you know to be wrong, what you know to be good and what you know to be bad? If someone yells at you as an adult and your first response is, I am not a child, you have conditioned yourself to believe that it's okay to always yell at the child. I can tell my 2-year-old things over and over again. I don't always yell. Sometimes that yelling forces her to stop. She's startled by it. Like, oh, something happened. Something, oh. Because a child is always focusing on pleasing the parent, because that's what they're conditioned to do as children. They want to do right by mommy and daddy. That's what they want to do. That's their conditioning. Why? Because mommy and daddy care for me. They don't know anything about love. That's a whole different show. But they do know that this person feeds me. This person changes me when I'm wet. This person rubs my boo-boo when it hurts. If I hit my hand and it's an owie, the parent kisses it and rubs it and makes it feel better. They know these things. And they want to make sure they get those things, because they're developing a consciousness. They're developing a consciousness when they get spanked. How do you spank a child? And no sooner do you spank them, they're crying, they're falling out on the floor, they're hurting, but then they get right back up and then they hug you, they hold you, and they're apologetic of a sort in their behavior. Because although they hurt, they also recognize that they've done something to not be pleasing to the parent. No, I'm not crying. My eyes water. They want to be pleasing to the parent. What happens along the way from childhood, right? And let me rephrase that. What happens from the point of being an infant to a toddler to a preteen to a teen to an adult, where that goes away? The pleasing of the parent. What happens is, part of the developmental stage is that they begin to come into their own being. They start forming their own identity. The way that identity is shaped is by things outside of them. Outside of them. So when you come into the preteen age, at that point you have somewhat found a direction in where you want to go as a person. The parent's responsibility is to mold, shape, and guide. them into their identity. So, what you say to a child, how you talk to a child, are you always condemning them for bad behavior? There should be a balance in uh, discipline. There should be a balance there. Punishment and discipline are two different things. So, how many times do you talk to a child about the things that they're doing or not doing, or should be doing, should not be doing, how they talk, and how they deal with difficulties, how they deal with the word no? You have to educate the child, not just give them words and tell them stop. Why do I need to stop? So, this is part of the developmental stages of the child. When a child resists that and go off on their own, we know they're going to be in trouble because we've been down that road before, where we have resisted guidance because we think the world is a particular way and we haven't even experienced the world in any capacity beyond the home. If you go abroad, as a child, going abroad is going outside of the home. When they get outside of the home, how do they act outside of the home? Why do they act differently outside of the home? Why? You come to understand what it is you're doing and what the child is learning, right? Based on them going outside of the home. And you have to correct the behavior outside of the home. This is not acceptable. If daddy says come here, you come. You don't keep going. Either away when you're being told the child, you're telling the child to come here, when you're telling the child to stop, when you're telling the child to no, because that other person is not their guidance. You are. You're their guidance. I really need for you to begin to look at your life realistically and not idea focus, because there's idea and then there's ideal. Ideal is evidence based. Idea is what you think. You need to understand that. Ideal, right? People come up with ideas all the time, but it's not evidence based because it's what you think will work. But when you're forming an idea, you have to look at ideal ways of doing things and then add your flavor. And make sure the flavor that you add is within the parameters of the ideal way of doing things. Right? Sorry on my eyes. You understand? So the idea is within the mind. The ideal is based on your learnings in the home, your teachings in your environment. Even if a person chooses to abuse drugs, right? Well, their idea was to experiment, to have fun. They see everybody else doing it, so they do it too. But then they start experiencing whatever the effect is of the drug. They don't understand what's happening inside of them, the dependence that begins to form, the regularity of its use, and how the regularity of its use affects their entire life. Everybody doesn't get addicted. Everybody doesn't get hooked on that particular thing. I'm talking about illicit drugs, right? Same way with pharmaceuticals. You take this for this, and you watch the commercial, and they tell you, okay, well, this pill will take care of this ailment. But also know that when taking this pill, you'll also experience this. Now I'm going to experience all these different things, And I'm only taking the pill for the one thing. But you have all these side effects. In life, there are side effects. There's a side effect for entering into relationships with other people. There's a side effect. So you have this idea that people should act this way, people should act that way. What's the side effect to that thinking? Must-itises, should-itises, can't stand-itises. Yeah, these are legitimate terms that I'm using. They're clinical terms that are being used because it's part of cognitive behavioral thinking. When you start looking at changes, you have to look how you think. How you think. Is your thinking, right, idea or ideal? Is it rational or irrational? So what's a mustitis? Mustitis is everybody should park their car, right, within the lines. They should be centered. They should be considerate of other people. And don't park too far over, because if you park too far over, the next person who parks on the side of you is doing the same. They're forced to park over the line. Therefore, one of those parking spaces becomes unavailable because everybody has continued to shift and move over. Is that realistic? Ideally, if people parked in these spaces, right, the way they're set up, and they're all not set up where they actually create enough space for you to park in, the parking lot is really established and set up to accommodate a certain amount of vehicles. So you find some parking spaces that are actually fitting so tight that you are forced to park on the line. Then there's some that are really large, which gives you enough room to get in and out of your vehicle and so on and so forth for the next people to park on either side of you. Right? That's ideal. But when you park in that smaller space and you get out of your car and you can barely get out, it's a problem for you. Well, it's a problem for all of us because we're thinking about our own accommodation, not thinking about the accommodation that was set forth by the developer of that lot. Case in point, if every time you go to this place in this parking lot that has these small spaces is the only access to where you have to go, and you go there on a regular basis and you get frustrated and angry every time you park in this parking lot, or on your way there, we got to go to South Spot, to go shopping, and it's got this small park. You start going through the whole thing within your own mind. Your mind is turning before you even go there. You wake up in the morning, you know you got to go to South Spot today. You start going through all these changes internally about the fact that you're going to this place with these small parking spaces. But you have to go there. You have to go there. Begrudgingly, you go. And the whole time you're complaining within yourself. You're complaining within yourself about having to go there. You haven't accepted the fact that there are small parking spaces and move on. This is what happens in relationships. The parking space becomes the problem. And the parking space is not the problem. The problem is how you are not problem solving, whereas you've accepted that this parking space is as it is. It's not going to change. It's going to be just the way it is. You have to go to soft spot. When you're in a relationship with a person, you committed to that person. Well, at least you said you did. But then you start complaining over and over again about the size of the parking space. And now I'm using the analogy in regards to a person. My wife is my parking space. That's the fit What are you going to do about it? You're in it by choice. You have to go to that parking space. At what point do you make a decision within yourself that you need to move on? That you need to go ahead and park and do what you got to do. That's the space. What we try to do is we try to do other things. Again, parking over the line, right? Some park partially over the line. Some people will actually park and straddle both spaces so they can have enough space. Not thinking about other people, not thinking about the other person. And then when you're told that you're over the line, that you're needed to get back in that space because this is what it is, it's a problem. So instead of accepting it, you try to change it. And then you want the other person to change with your thinking. So people must accommodate me in order for me to be in this relationship. But you'll go to South Spot and you'll park in that space every time you have to go there and go in the store and keep it moving. You got what you needed. It's the same exact thing in a relationship with your spouse. And I'm gonna use spouse, because my mindset is ideally spouse. I think spousal. So when you hear me say spousal, I'm talking about girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it is y'all calling yourself. Y'all are involved. You're in that space. You're parked in that space. Both of you are parked in that space. And until you accept that's the way it's going to be, because you chose to go to South Spot, you chose to be in a relationship with this person. You have to make the adjustments. They don't have to make the adjustments. They don't have to make the adjustments. South Spot is not located at a place where there are larger spaces. Your spouse is not going to clear out the whole parking lot and redo things so you'll have more space for you. No, we're going to work this out in this space. You'll do it for one thing, but you won't do it for the other. Why is that? And how is that tied into the childhood development that I was just talking about? Because what we do as children, we do because children are born totally self-centered. They don't have the understanding yet of yielding. They want what they want when they want it. They want it now. And they have to be taught otherwise. You follow me? They have to be taught otherwise. But many adults haven't shaken off the little boy. They haven't shaken off the little girl. They want to still be in that same mindset of parking over the line. And then they wonder why they have so many difficulties and challenges in a relationship, and they blame the other person. They don't blame themselves. Once you know, you can't go back to not knowing. You're just making a conscious decision to defy societal norms. But you complain every step of the way and wonder why you're in the situation you're in. In the previous shows, we've talked a lot about happiness and how happiness is your responsibility. I don't make people happy. I don't make my wife happy. I bring happiness to her life. I don't make her happy. And if she's relied upon me to make her happy, when the issue is not mine, the issue is hers. See, we're going to talk. If you're thin-skinned, you need to go to another page. If you want to grow, let's talk. But we're not conditioned to go deep. We're not conditioned to turn up within ourselves. We're conditioned, right, to get pleased and satisfied by others. Some of us are conditioned to be appeasing to others. Those like myself who are caretakers, who are neighbors in many ways of other people, and we have to find that balance too, or we get trampled on because of the things that I just talked about. Because everybody doesn't want to park in that parking space. But they like it. And they go there all the time. Go there all the time. So there's this article that I found, Psychology Today. And again, I don't read these articles um, in depth before doing shows. So every show that I'm doing, I'm learning with you. So I have my aha moments during shows as well. But this one, for some reason, stood out to me. This was laying on my spirit this morning. 10 things to remember when your partner triggers you, right? And this is not blaming the partner. This is not blaming the partner. I just laid it out for you, told you it's you. It's not your partner. Because your partner does things, again, that parking space, right? Because that parking space is what it is. And if you keep going into that parking space and before getting to the parking space, you're already, balled up in a knot, right? When you park in it, man, it's just going to be difficult because you're going to complain the whole time. Getting in the car, getting out of the car, going to the place, you're going to complain the whole time. And it's triggering you. And depending on what your day is looking like, it's just one more layer that's going to be added on to the challenges in life itself. So this is Psychology Today. Michelle P. Maldenberg, PhD, MPH, LCSW-R, CGP. Michelle's got like almost the alphabet, in front of her name. But she is the writer of this article on relationships and the 10 things to remember when your partner triggers you. So in the title itself, there's direction being given. 10 things to remember. You have to remember. That's the first thing. You have to remember these 10 things. Right? So there's work. We talked beginning of the show. You have to put in the work. So you're obligated. You're in this parking space now. This is your parking space. And if anybody's offended by me using them as a human being as a parking space, again, you need to come to understand analogies. You have to begin to use analogies in life in order to begin to understand your own behavior, because sometimes we lose sight of that. So it's an analogy. If you're offended by it, that you're triggered by it, then this article is for you. This show is for you. 10 things to remember. So that means there's 10 things. It's not one thing to remember. You need to remember these 10 things, right? If you want to find yourself in a successful, long-term relationship, it's things that you must do. The other part is when your partner triggers you. So you first and foremost have to remember these 10 things, because the other part to it is understanding that your partner is going to trigger things within you. I just told you why. Conditioning from the fetus to current date, right? Your partner is going to trigger you. You're not going to be with somebody else, another person who's not you. You're going to trigger your damn self if you were with you. Think about it. Could you just be with you? Really? Okay. So, key points. When triggered in our relationships, it can feel as if we're spinning out of control because we become activated and remote from our values. Next point. Our triggers are treasures and direct vessels facilitating our self-awareness. Next point. Our intensity, right? I'm sorry. Our intense reactions may be indicative of unprocessed thoughts and feelings stemming from childhood or a coping mechanism getting enacted. Childhood. We all collectively spin out of control. The process manifests itself differently from person to person. We get triggered, viscerally impacted, and have the tendency to spontaneously react and often overreact. We lose sight of our relationship and turn narrowly into our thoughts and feelings, ideas and ideals. Many of us become defensive, self protective, and closed off. Because we're all so unique in our thoughts and feelings, the same circumstance can occur, and two people can react and process it very differently. So, when you look at what we were initially talking about and its alignment with what we're talking about now, it says here we lose sight of our relationship, right? We lose sight of our relationship and turn narrowly into our thoughts and feelings. So when you hear people say that somebody's being narrow minded, what does that mean? It means that they're being inconsiderate in their thinking. What's going on, O? Good to see you, man. What's going on at this point? Narrowly. It's like having tunnel vision at this point. Something that your partner has done has triggered you. And the first reaction we often fall into is becoming defensive. We overreact. And we lose sight of the person in front of us because it's now in this moment, it's about us. It's about what you just said or what you just did. Now we're in the mind. So the term narrow minded means that we have regressed to a point of our trauma because it talks about childhood in this paragraph. We have regressed and we have gone into the mind. Now, you look at yourself and you say, well, how big is the mind? And why does it have to be narrow? Because it is narrow. Because when you don't think about what's coming out of your mouth and what you're about to say to this other person in reaction to, in response to what they just said or did, you're being narrow in your thinking because they said it or they did it for a reason. Now, is the reason they did it important? Yes, to some degree. Because it may have something to do with you. It may have something to do with how you're treating them, how you're talking to them, what you said or did, and they just suppressed it. But in this moment, they felt the need to say it. So instead of you seeking to find out, the first thing you do is you react, you overreact. So you're defensive, you're guarded now. But you go from being defensive to offensive with your comments. So now you offended them. See the rabbit hole that starts happening? You're defensive about something they just said or did. Right? You say something back. You do something back. They're offended. Because you're not understanding. In that moment, you're trying to be understood and not understanding why this just happened. It happened for a reason. Why would you be in a relationship with a person who you have to negatively perceive when they say or do things? If we're in a committed relationship, if I love you, if I care about you, these are words that I utter every single day to you via text, via telephone calls. These are all the things that I say to you all the time. But in this moment, something just happened that triggered you. And now you want to have a negative perception of them, and you want to say some hurtful things to them. You want to overreact to something that just transpired, and you don't seek to get an understanding first and foremost, right? You blow up. You blow up, and it's not acceptable My bad. It's not acceptable to always be apologetic because your apologies have to be followed up with action. An apology is an action. Apology is a verb that's implying action. I apologize. So if I apologize, I state the words I apologize. So the action is not the statement. The action is what you do about it. It's what you do about it. Yes, when you make an apology, you're making an apology for yourself. I'm sorry I did it. That wasn't my intention. So now you are confirming within yourself the need to take action. And the person has the expectation that you're taking action because they understand the word apology. And some people accept apologies and you think that it's okay. It's not okay because when you do it again, the same response, the same interaction is going to happen. You're in control of that. It says here, turn narrowly into our thoughts and our feelings. It's all about me. It's all about me now. But just a minute ago, you told me how much you love me. You told me how you want to spend the rest of your life with me. Now, you're narrow-minded in this situation. And that changes the perception of the other person about you. Because I'm not understanding it this morning. Why are you talking to me in the way you're talking to me? Why are you responding to me in the way you're responding to me? I don't see any love. I don't see any empathy in this response. I see pure hatred. Yeah. I see dissension. I don't see love that you just talked about a minute ago. Right? Why is that there within you? The other part that it talks about here, many of us become defensive, self-protective, and closed off. I want to talk. And many say that being closed off is a behavior of males, that men don't talk. We talk. Maybe you should listen. You would hear us talking. And we don't always talk with words. You don't look for the hurt. You don't look for the hurt. And you have to look for the hurt. We display our hurts differently. I'm a talker, so I'm always going to talk about things. Right? Part of my talking is, yes, I can become closed off. Right? If I feel devalued, if I feel disrespected, if I feel a lack of loyalty, a lack of trust, yeah, I do. And if you look at Libra, because I'm a Libra, and you look at my posts, all those posts that I'm posting about Libra are on point. And you say, well, yeah, anybody, Libra, Scorpio, whatever, can do the same thing. This is part of, I have the understanding that I, as a human being, am in alignment with the world. I don't consider myself to be independent of the world. I exist in this world, and I'm a part of this world for a reason. And there's a contribution that I make. Every time I breathe, I'm making a contribution to life on this planet. Everything that happens stellarly, it's all. We're created as human beings from all parts of the world. I think it's, and I always reference that what do they call it? The element thing, that thing that they have and used to have in school. They show you the different carbon and H2O and all these things. We're created. Just about everything in this earth we're created it's within us. I think there's about 7 of those elements that are not inside of us. So I have an understanding that there's a relationship between my existence and what's referred to as zodiac signs, because you have to understand astrology. Human beings don't want to understand science and the relationship between them in the scheme of life. I want to understand that, right? We keep saying how we believe in God, and don't even understand what it is we're saying. Because everything is tied into science. I don't care what scripture you read, you need to read and you need to understand the science of humanity. So, and it says here that the same circumstance can occur, and two people can react and process it very differently. It goes back to the old term of what I eat don't make you poop. You understand? So that's where that analogy really comes from, because we can all see one thing happen and everybody comes away from it with a different perception. Everybody has seen it differently. And until we take a look at that in itself, right, we'll never understand why we're always in conflict. And conflict is not the negative thing. A lot of people avoid conflict in relationships because they don't know how to deal with those things. Understand your humanity. Understand that it's supposed to happen. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. Back to the article. We naturally present with our narrative and pre-subscribed thoughts and ideas. It uses the term ideas, not ideals. Got to understand. See, got to use that dictionary. Our narrative. What's a narrative? Every time you watch the news and you see the news about blacks, what's the narrative? Shiftless, lazy, animals, destructive. That's the narrative, right? Need to be locked up, right? That's the narrative that you see. So that's a narrative. That's a narrative. So we naturally present our narrative to other people. This is my narrative. Who you see is my narrative. If you know me personally, you know my narrative, right? And our narrative and pre-subscribed thoughts and ideas about ourselves. Pre-subscribed. What is a subscription? What is a subscription? Right? You have to look at those things. When you subscribe to something, for instance, I tell you, hey, you watch Daddy's Right Here Live, hit the like button and do what? Subscribe. Become a member. Become a member. So you have a pre-subscription that happens at birth. At birth. Right? You start learning things from birth. That's your subscription. How you talk to your child is a pre-subscription for what? Adulthood. For adulthood. So we're presenting our narrative and pre-subscribe. Pre-subscribe, that means before this point. Thoughts and ideas about ourselves. What messages were we sent about ourselves? Children are brutal when it comes to being honest and forthright with stuff. You go to school, you be hearing them say, "Oh, your mom stinks. I saw her yesterday. She had that stinky dress on yesterday, and she came and dropped you off in the same dress today. She stinks." That's brutal. How do you feel about that as a child? What messages do you get from that? Do you see your mother differently? Do you see that child differently? Does your mother actually wear that same dress when she drops you off? Yeah, she does. How's that child know it stinks? Does it stink? Right? But it doesn't. It doesn't. Mom throws her little moo-moo on. She drops you off at school. She's not going out. She's dropping you off. The other kid sees it. What do you know? What are the facts? And then how do you see that kid? Do you even take a look at facts? You just base it on the kid because you see this kid. Because this kid is presenting their narrative and pre-subscribe, right? thoughts and ideas. Prescribed thoughts and ideas about ourselves, right? Others and the world in general. So here I am, a skinny little light bright kid, you know, who they said I used to get teased. I looked like a toothpick with an apple for a head. You know, the forehead. You know, I had a big fro, but my forehead stood out. They used to call me light bulb. The color of my lips. I used to have a guy call me Kool-Aid lips. It's these things. These are the prescription. It's the prescribed thoughts, right? Which form my perception of self. How did I react to those things? For me, I reacted with um, a means of I overcompensated by strength. They used to call me cocky because I was strong. I always had this strength, right? But I used to play baseball, and they would always put me outfield because I can throw the ball from outfield home. I had a real strong arm. That's like I used to play basketball. Like, don't give me the ball running down court. I used to They used to call me Rainbow. I used to shoot half court shots. I was like 13, 14 on the basketball court, and I was shooting half court shots because I didn't want to get touched. You know, I didn't want to get touched. I didn't want to be in because it was a little fragile dude. I didn't want, but I mastered the half court shot. It was like a guarantee. I was like the Steph Curry, half court shot, bam, hit because I practiced that because I wasn't going in there. As I got older, I started going inside because I wanted the contact. But so they used to call me cocky. So I used to do things that showed my strength. Right. That's how I overcompensated for all those other things that um, they labeled me as being. And I got into that box. So that was my overcompensation. Then I would do some other crazy stuff too, to be, considered crazy. And I actually became crazy. But no, that's another show. Um, and the world view. So now you have this world view of other people, of other things, and so all of these things are going into this whole mix of you in front of your spouse. Back to the article. This often leads us to judge, criticize, and draw false conclusions, which inevitably evoke uncomfortable thoughts and feelings about ourselves, another person, or sometimes both. How often do we have an argument and before we know it, we've lost sight of what we were arguing about? Or we find ourselves in an abyss of exasperation because we're so hyper focused on getting our point across that we've stopped listening and trying to understand the person we're speaking to. Yeah. So when you start arguing and the person starts bringing out the laundry list of things, damn, we were just talking about like how you just crashed the car into another car because you weren't paying attention. We were just talking about that, and you start bringing up when I didn't pay attention to this, when I didn't pay attention to that, or well, I asked you to put the cabinet up 2 months ago, and you still ain't put that cabinet up. We were just talking. We were just talking about the crash. Were you right? Sound familiar? The article. Our triggers are a direct vessel facilitating our self awareness. When we're triggered and experience that sharp pang, we're connecting to our values, what's meaningful to us, and what direction we want our life to take. When our mind spins out of control, we are able to seize the opportunity to grow from the process. And this is why you must remember these 10 things when your partner triggers you. That's why this article is important. That's why it's important to remember these 10 things. And if you don't remember these 10 things now, then it's a good chance that your relationship that's struggling is already shot out. So what are these 10 things? Let's go to these 10 things, right? Through these through these reminders, you can learn to hone in on what's truly important to you and act in a way that will fortify your compassion and self-confidence rather than thwart them, right? And to thwart something is to uh, sabotage. A lot of times we do self-sabotaging things because we're in our feelings or we're up in our head, with thoughts that don't belong there. But we allow them to reside there because we have sought to not do anything about them. We want that other person to just accept it. And those of you who know that I've been married multiples of times, and the first thing somebody says is, "Hey, well, what are you doing wrong?" It doesn't have to be anybody doing anything wrong. Sometimes two people get together and those conflicts continue to arise and they go unresolved, and like somebody has to make the decision to move on. Not unless you just want to live that way for the duration of your life with that person, constantly going through all those changes. Neither one of you are growing, but you know, you like it, I love it because it's you. I'm just not one who's going to continue over and over and over and over and over again at this point in life to deal with those things because I don't have to. It's your choice to be in that condition. I have the choice to not want to be a part of that. I have that right. We need to exercise our right. I exercise my right. You've having this many years and we have the same stuff going on and on. You're not seeking to bring resolve to it. You're not seeking to make change within yourself. You're not going to do anything different, but I'm expecting you to do something different, and you're not going to do something different. You can't take a person away from a place that they choose to be. You can't love it away. You can't materialism it away. You can't do anything that's going to change that person's condition. It won't happen. That's something they have to do. That's their responsibility. I'm not your therapist. I'm your husband. I've never fallen prey to that in my relationships, and I've been a clinician for 30 years. I'm not going to become somebody's counselor. That's not my role with you. That's not my role. That's responsibility you have to take for yourself. So y'all know we're not going to get through this whole list today. That next Saturday we're going to have to follow up, but we're going to go through a couple of them. Just a couple. I just need for you to fully understand what this article is really about. That's why reading is so important. That's why if you want to grow, watch these shows. Watch these shows. Sit down with your partner. Sit down with a group of people. Instead of playing, cards or, sitting down and drinking and watching and fight all the time, get together and have some growth sessions between you and your partner. Between you and other. Bring other couples involved. Bring some other couples in, right? And watch some of these shows together and look at the conversations that transpire outside of the show content. You have to begin to relate if you're going to have any kind of growth within yourself. You can't keep going the route you're going and think that this is going to be a great and wonderful life. It doesn't happen that way. That's psychopath kind of thinking, right? Psychopaths don't care. They don't. You can't change the thinking of a psychopath. They're always going to be a psychopath. Psychopaths don't care about others in the capacity that, you know, um, the so called normal people do. To them, their life is normal. So let's go to number one. A trigger from my past relationship or past relationships may be spilling over into my present relationship. God, I know we can all identify with that. Not unless you've just been in one relationship. Relationship triggers are often derived from our family of origin and formative relationships. Those are relationships outside of the family, the workplace, the barbershop, the basketball court, business interactions. You have preconceived notions about what makes you feel noticed, validated, safe, and appreciated, among many other relational variables, right? Because these, again, the human being is multifaceted. Therefore, your approach to resolve is going to be multifaceted because you're not just dealing with you, you're dealing with somebody else. Your current reactions may stem from unprocessed thoughts and feelings. Your automatic responses that are enactments, reliving, right, of the coping skills that serve to protect you, right? So there's a reenactment and there's an enactment. The enactment is, right, what you have been conditioned to do through those things. The reenactment happens, we call it rubber banding in clinical terms, because you go back to a childhood period, or you go back to an event. In this case, we're talking about other relationships. So the reenactment happens when the other person does something that is similar to what another person did in a failed relationship. Everything about the relationship that you were in previously wasn't all bad. It may not have ended well. The fact that it ended is also an issue, right? So when you're faced with um, that situation and it's similar to the other person, well, you won't even look at the fact that, well, yeah, that happened between me and that other person, but you have encapsulated in a negative sense everything about that relationship because it failed, but it wasn't always bad. But in that moment, you're not looking at that. That's the narrow mindedness again, because the issue between me and the former partner had nothing to do with that. Had nothing to do with that. And if it did have something to do with the failing of that previous relationship and it's similar in nature now, doesn't mean that the outcome has to be the same. But we don't think that way. We automatically go into our thoughts and feelings. So we have the reenactment. But the enactment is whenever this happens, I get triggered and this is what I do. So this is the action. The reenactment happened in here. Your current reactions may stem from unprocessed thoughts and feelings. The human being automatically protects itself. When devastating things happen, I'll give you an example. When I had a car accident, everything was happening in the here and now. Car next to me was riding, pretty much at the same pace, and then all of a sudden the car next to me leered over. I reacted, and when I reacted I was probably, I think I was going like 60, maybe 60 miles an hour. It was rush hour traffic. I was leaving from Delaware going to Philly to work. I'm just rolling, just driving, one hand on the wheel, and this car next to me just suddenly leered over. I reacted. When I reacted, my car, I wasn't even thinking. My foot was still on the gas, so my car was at accelerated because of the jerk, and it was still. And I was trying to get the car back under control. It was like 4 lanes of traffic, and the first thing I said to myself, I said, "Well, God, I don't want all these cars to hit me." So I took the car and I turned it towards the rail, not thinking to take my foot off the gas. Heard the motor in my head just heard it just revving. I turned towards the rail to stop the vehicle. Well, my car never hit the rail. My car was going so fast that it actually went airborne. It went airborne, and along 95, there's a creek that runs along 95. But when I turned my car towards the rail, it's like everything faded out. I had accepted within myself that something was going to happen, that I was going to crash, and I accepted it. And in that moment, everything just it faded out. Everything faded out. When it came back into uh, the moment, my car was still moving. It was upside down in the creek, and it was still moving. I don't know how fast it was moving, but then suddenly it hit something and it flipped up and it came out. It came out of the water. And ultimately, my car wound up about maybe 16 feet in the air. Part of it was in a tree, and the other part was on a cyclone fence. I say all that to say that the protection that happened in the moment, um, well, it just faded out. I had accepted whatever was going to happen. Excuse me. So we have to look at um, what the human body does for itself. But it says here, uh, unprocessed thoughts and feelings, and your automatic responses being enactments of the coping skills that serve to protect you. So you have a means to protect yourself automatically as a human being, but then there's things that we do consciously to protect ourselves, right? And how we protect ourselves are based on the unprocessed thoughts and feelings, because we have such painful situations that happen that it gets suppressed. It gets suppressed, and you continue to move on in life. And when things happen, right, it gets triggered and it comes to the forefront of the mind. And that's why when things come to memory that are difficult, you automatically experience an emotional upheaval. And you go right into that feeling in that moment with that person. The narrow minded aspect, that narrow thinking, and we do hurtful things. You understand what I'm saying here? So you un, unconsciously you're aware of it. Consciously, it's been suppressed so you can move forward. That's what the human body does for you, period. It does it automatically. So it's unprocessed. So now it's here. You're overreacting. Now it's like it just happened. The same thing that happened 15 years ago is happening right now. All the feelings, the thoughts are right there. And you're giving it to your wife. You're giving it to your husband. And don't even realize that's what you're doing. Don't even realize that's what you're doing. And it's not intentionally. We protect ourselves. It is not time to pack your shit and run. It's time to face this unprocessed thought, these unprocessed feelings. And who better to do it with than your spouse? But both of y'all have to be on the same page in terms of like what we represent to one another. And even if you don't understand in the moment, even if you're hurt in the moment, right, there has to be some dialogue about this. What happened? The other person shouldn't be made to feel like it's them when it's actually your unprocessed thoughts and feelings. It belongs to me. Yes, you triggered it, but it's mine. It's something within me that I have not dealt with. It's something in me that I need to deal with if I choose to, because I chose this relationship. I chose you as my spouse. Therefore, I need to choose resolve. But always remember this: everything is not forgivable in the moment or sometimes in the future. Everybody doesn't have to forgive. And even if they forgive, they don't forget. And that means they don't have to stay in a relationship because you made the conscious decision to say what you said, the very hurtful things that you said, the very hurtful things that you did, because something got triggered in you. Yeah. That's why these are 10 things that you must remember when being triggered by your partner. Yeah. Understanding your triggers better helps you to avoid getting locked into your narrative. Remember, I told you what the narrative is. You can change your narrative and forgetting that there are other possibilities beyond your current thoughts and feelings. We only got to one today, y'all. I like to be clear. I like for you to have a clear message. I don't like to just run through things, right? But understanding when I'm talking to you, I'm talking to me too. So this is a therapeutic session for me because it helps me stay on point. It helps me to remember the 10 things like this and other things that I need to remember. This is my counseling session as well. Yeah. So if you like what you see on Daddy's Right Here Live, subscribe. I know y'all watch. Subscribe. Subscribe. That's all. Just hit that subscribe button. Become a member. Right? Because we're going to do this together. But you see how all of us can get together with different ideas, different ideals, different walks of life. We can get together on a show like this, right? Because we want to do something different. We want to see change in our lives, right? If only we could do the same thing when coming to the table in our communities to address the things that need to be addressed in our communities. This is why it's so difficult because everybody wants to stop the violence, but everybody doesn't want to do the work on themselves so we can all work together because you can't get past your narrative or your prescription. You can't get past that. This is why we continue to have unresolved. And even in communities that you see where there's some resolve, where you see them rise and address, doesn't mean that those things are not existing. Somebody walked out of there still not in agreement. But what is the end game? The end game is to stop the violence, to stop the senseless murders. I remember back in the day where they used to put up a boxing ring. Yeah, in the center. Mm-hmm. Squash your beefs now. Let's have it. Boxing. Nobody even does that anymore. They done turned Joe Frazier's gym into a damn economy store of some sort. Why? That was the epicenter for Philadelphia. A lot of people took their street mentalities to the ring. And look at how many boxers we have out of Philadelphia who are still kicking ass. Either in memory, on reels, or in real time. There's solutions there. But until we get past the complicatedness of ourselves, until we start addressing the unresolved within ourselves, with our own thoughts and feelings and ideas and ideals, we're going to always be in the same circumstance. That's the world. It's not just in the Black community. That's the narrative. Again, stop following those narratives. What do you see in your own community and what can you do different in your own community? This is my difference right here. Working in the field of human services for 30 years. That's been mine. That's what I continue to do. But I've sat at many tables and the outcome has always been the same. And you find the same people at the same tables over and over again with a few added faces, but these are people who are affiliates and friends and so on and so forth, or these other people who continue to be at the table. But if we're having the same damn people at the table all the time, we have no resolve in the communities why we keep bringing the same damn people to the damn table. Damn, we even vote politicians out of office. You can't vote your ass from the table? No, we don't want you at the table. Oh, yeah, because you got a little bit of clout, so you think you can change that. So out of your own viciousness, your own divisive way of thinking, you interject some other people in there that's going to take it down. That's what you do because you're gangster. That's what you are. You gangster. Not gangster is making it happen for your community. That's gangster. It's gangster when you stop the violence on your own block. It's gangster when you make a way for your kids and your family members to walk up and down the street safely. That's gangster. It's gangster when you shut down that store that's nothing but a haven for bad behavior. That's gangster. It ain't gangster when you killing your own. That's stupid. I'm sorry, but I got a little off track here. But that's a reality. But it starts in the home. It starts in the home. How you talk to your child, how you talk to your woman, what you allow to go on in your house. That's where it stops. You stop it there, it stops next door, it stops on the block over. When it happens like that, now you have community. Now you have resolve. You have people who are thinking. And you got to start it in your home. We only got to number one, y'all. Make sure you tune in next week, right? Because we got to get to number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Because you got to remember all 10 of them. I'm just giving you the first one, right? Because you got to remember. If I give you all 10 right now, you're going to forget. I want you to let that marinate. Excuse me. I want you to let that marinate. Let your first one marinate. Have a discussion with your spouse. Yeah. After the show, while somebody fixes breakfast, somebody getting up and fixing some breakfast, or we going out or something happening with some breakfast, or But I'm just saying, this is a good time to have that conversation. The show just ended. We're going to have that conversation now. You might have been having a conversation during the show, but I have over 200 videos. Yeah. On my Severe Aleem Educational Station on YouTube. Just Google my name, Severe Aleem. That's all. You can remember that, right? Same thing for my music. Oh, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention y'all need to be looking for Aleem for You, LLC. Yeah, Aleem for You, LLC. All these cups that y'all seeing, these mugs, these tumblers that y'all seeing, all these cute little designs. Aleem for You, LLC is a master of those things. Look at our designs. You won't find these designs anywhere else. You won't find them anywhere else. There's love put into designing these things. We're not just buying wraps and slapping them on a tumbler and say, here, buy this. We're not doing that. We're putting work into it. Yeah. Yeah. We're taking wraps and reinventing them, layering them for 3D fixtures, merging different designs together and making them one. Yeah. You're not just getting something slapped on to a garment. Cups, tumblers, tote bags, hats, t-shirts, sweatshirts, posters, and more. You won't find. And for those of you who know that I'm an artist, right? There's also my handiwork integrated into some of these designs. Different collections coming out. Right now, we're going to be working on putting out a kids collection for these kids tumblers. Yeah, time to take them off them bottles. Give them these tumblers. The milk stays cold. The juice stays cold. You don't have to worry about having a plastic bottle sitting around and that milk or that juice is cold within 5-10 minutes. These tumblers keep this stuff cold for hours. So when a child falls asleep drinking that cold juice, they wake back up to cold juice. Yeah. You got a hot bottle, right? That bottle, that tumbler stays hot. Stays hot while you're traveling. You're sitting in the church. You're sitting in the masjid. You're sitting in the synagogue. And you got the baby with you. All you got to do is pull out a warm bottle. You ain't got to stop, go get hot water, none of that stuff. You put it right into this tumbler. Coffee. I've been drinking this coffee. This was a gift. That's why I got this. But you're going to be seeing product on the shows. Y'all seen my lean coffee mug, right? Y'all seen that, right? I am my own brand. This coffee will stay in here for hours. I'd get up, leave out of the house 7:30 in the morning with a full cup. What I don't drink when I come out, because I work in the prisons, when I come out of the prison, get into the car, it's still hot. And if it's one of them smoking days, I live in Florida, so it's always smoke, right? It's still hot. I got a 30-ounce one as a gift. Put ice in that juice. I don't have to make any stops along the way unless my cup is empty. But guaranteed cold, hours cold. Those tumblers that people are selling, they're cute. They're getting your money. I'm giving you love. We're giving you love at a Lean for You, LLC. You need to check out our products. We coming. I told y'all I wasn't done. Oh, and also, I got new music dropping for you probably at the end of July. Yeah, new music. Yeah, I'm always busy, man. I'm not trying to age. Yeah, yeah. I ain't trying to age. Well, not age out. I'm gonna age gracefully. Yeah. Y'all have a great one. And as always, I appreciate you guys tuning in to the show, right? You could be doing anything else on a Saturday morning, but here you be, sitting with me. Here you be, sitting with me for another episode of Daddy's Right Here Live. As always, I'm your host. Thank you so much. In the background, you're listening to Bottom Feeders, which was my latest release. I'll see y'all next Saturday. Peace. They're in front of the camera, setting the bait. Media propaganda, blitz, they're just spreading the hate. They're waving to the crowd, spewing empty promises. The applause is loud. Damn, you still fall for this. It's a dog and pony show, threatening your woke. Donkeys and elephants, a three-ring circus, rope-a-dope. They lured us in, hook, line, and sinker. They only want followers, not independent thinkers. Political leaders, sweet bottom feeders, men who are on, their faces are two-tone. Political leaders, sweet bottom feeders, men who are on, their faces are two-tone. Macon University, y'all, HBCU forever. Their faces are two-tone. Up in the way, superheroes to many, saviors for some. They appear distinguished, the 1%ers. Their souls extinguished, their minds destroyed. For you against you, all in the same breath. With us against us, it's a loyalty litmus test. Patriotism. Oh, and if you don't know, I write my own songs. I record right here in my studio, and I do my own music. Yeah, mixed and mastered by me. 3 years in, and I'm getting better. Men who are on, their faces are two-tone. Their faces are two-tone. Their faces are two-tone. Bottom feeders. Yeah, their faces are two-tone. BAGLES. Let's go, baby. They call it a chamber, Believers of the manger, in God they trust not, fallen angel, no stranger. And until they die, from their seats they will cry, to our faces telling lies, they're complicit, no surprise. The ceiling is high, they think the same of you and I. What they call woke is a politicized form of divide. All lives no matter, just listen to the idle chatter. They're hiding in plain sight because they fear the smoke and spatter. Political leaders, sweet bottom feeders, men who are on their faces are two-tone. Political leaders, sweet bottom feeders, men who are on their faces are two-tone. Their faces are two-tone. The body count is growing from the propaganda that's sowing. They're hiding the hand, want to keep you not knowing. Peace seems to come through war, but war doesn't bring peace. Racism effects are an intermittent release. They think you'll be called, then they'll call one for you, presenting arms as though they adore you. They're dualistic in nature, maturationist. They turn the other cheek and receive the Judas kiss. Political haters, sweet bottom faders, men who are on their faces are two-tone. Political leaders, sweet bottom faders, men who are on their faces are two-tone. Their faces are two-tone. Their faces are two-tone. Yeah, their faces are two-tone. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. I will see you next Saturday. Make sure that you are here with your little slippers on, right? The little fuzzy ones, the little fuzzy ones you have. But I will see y'all